To become one of the most recognizable faces in Hollywood, how does one become a juvenile delinquent not once, but twice? Here we are to guide you through that path, and Rory Calhoun would be an expert on the subject. But there was a darker side to his character that lay beneath all the showmanship. A side where the untold stories behind Hollywood's glossy facade might make or ruin careers. The unseen and unexpectedly tragic life story of Rory Calhoun is about to unfold, so brace yourself. A Hollywood icon you were never truly acquainted with. Rory Calhoun, whose real name was Francis Timothy McCown, had a rough start in life. His unconventional family brought him up in Santa Cruz, California, where he spent a lot of his childhood after being born in Los Angeles. Though his Irish heritage may have given his father, Floyd Conley McCown, a natural charisma, it certainly didn't keep him out of trouble as a professional gambler. Rather from being the biography of an upcoming Hollywood star, Rory's formative years are more reminiscent of a grim crime drama. At the age of 13, Rory had already embarked on a perilous journey. Theft of a firearm resulted in his incarceration at the Preston School of Industry, a juvenile correctional facility. Rory quickly came to the conclusion that he wasn't suited for solitary confinement. He broke out of the so-called adjustment center, which was really simply a prison inside a prison, at the reformatory. Showing an early talent for figuring out how to get around things and avoid getting caught. At home, things were just as difficult. Rory ran away from home at the age of 17 when his stepfather's abuse became intolerable. The decisions he took while living on the streets only led him into more difficulty. He made a decision that altered the course of his life, and he started hot-wiring automobiles and stealing jewelry stores. He crossed state boundaries in a stolen automobile. The federal government took notice of that judgment. And he faced a possible sentence of 20 years in prison upon his eventual capture. Some serendipity led Rory to an unexpected source of support. He met Father Daniel Canale, a priest with a gift for connecting with even the most difficult inmates, while serving his sentence. A standoff ensued one day when Rory, in an act of desperation, seized a guard's weapon. An interesting offer came from Father Canale, who approached him. A few rounds would be exchanged if Rory relinquished the gun. Rory probably thought he could manage a confrontation on his own and consented. The priest had boxed while in college, something he was unaware of. Rory may not have landed a punch, but he gained a mentor who had faith in his ability to change his life for the better. Rory was advised by Father Canale to escape Springfield Federal Penitentiary when he was 21 years old, and he did just that on his birthday. He went on and accomplished that very thing. The young man who had challenged a priest while incarcerated would later find success in the film industry. There he would portray characters such as Gentleman Jim Corbett in The Great John L., a boxer whose grit and resolve had helped Rory overcome his trials. Rory was prepared to put his criminal past in the past after being paroled, but he quickly realized that life on the outside wasn't going to be simple. He would take jobs wherever he could, even if they were difficult. He had a mechanical mind, worked as a logger in the redwoods of California, mined hard rock in Nevada, rode a horse in Arizona, fished, drove a truck, operated a crane, and even put out forest fires. His ability to work hard and avoid difficulties was demonstrated in each job he had. Hollywood, however, remained elusive, at least initially. A fortuitous meeting brought Rory face to face with the film industry a full year following his release. Becoming a Hollywood actor was never Rory Calhoun's intention. It appeared as though his narrative was destined for obscurity, not glory. The saying goes, though, that fate had other ideas. As Rory rode his horse over the Hollywood Hills one January day in 1944, an incident occurred that would alter the course of his life. Alan Ladd, a famous actor at the time, happened to cross paths with Rory and was immediately captivated by his rugged good looks. Ladd referred Rory to Sue Carroll, his wife and a talent agent, because he thought Rory had a Hollywood appearance. Sue decided to arrange for Rory to have a screen test at 20th Century Fox when she noticed his potential. Shortly after, he was spotted on set of several films, including something for the boys and Sunday Dinner for a Soldier, where he had minor, uncredited roles. When he first started out, his on-screen presence was minimal at best, consisting of only a line or two of dialogue or occasional background filler. In fact, he co-starred with Laurel and Hardy in the comedic film The Bullfighters, in which his real name, Frank McCown, was acknowledged. Even though his early jobs were somewhat little, they exposed him to a world he had never imagined, the glamorous world of Hollywood. With each new character he landed, like Gentleman Jim Corbett in The Great John L., Rory began to wonder if acting was more of a calling than he had anticipated. At first, he had considered acting as a means to an end, a means to earn some fast cash so he could go back to a simpler existence. Potentially doing outside work, similar to his previous occupations. However, Rory began to view acting as more than just a side hustle as each assignment immersed him further in the film industry. Hollywood was hell-bent on keeping him around, so what had begun as a random meeting was rapidly evolving into a genuine opportunity for something more. Rory Calhoun's life took an unexpected turn not long after he was introduced to the Hollywood scene. At a gathering that Alan Ladd and Sue Carroll hosted, Rory met Henry Wilson, a talented agent with keen insight who worked for the groundbreaking producer David O. Selznick. Rory was signed to Selznick's organization, Vanguard, by Wilson because of his promise. That was the beginning of Francis Timothy McCown's transformation into a Hollywood star. Because lions roar, and because Selznick believed Rory's ferocious spirit befitted the moniker, he insisted on changing the name to Rory. The legal birth of Rory Calhoun occurred after he had already decided on the surname Calhoun. Rory was introduced to the Hollywood lifestyle in a flash as part of his deal with Vanguard. He made an incredibly glitzy debut in front of the public. He accompanied Lana Turner to the Spellbound premiere, directed by Alfred Hitchcock. When they arrived, photographers snapped pictures of the dashing newcomer with one of Hollywood's biggest stars, causing his picture to be splashed over newspapers and magazines. However, Calhoun encountered some bumps along the way. After getting into an altercation with a detective in 1945, he had another brush with the police and spent some time behind bars. In spite of this obstacle, his career persisted, albeit in a circuitous fashion at times. After a while away from the spotlight, he returned in 1947 as one of Edward G. Robinson's co-stars in The Red House, made possible via a loan-out arrangement with producer Saul Lesser. After then, Rory's career started to really take off. While on loan to Paramount's Pine Thomas studio, he co-starred with Rhonda Fleming in the lead role of Adventure Island. His star continued to rise in both supporting and leading roles. He co-starred with Shirley Temple and Ronald Reagan in That Hagen Girl, and he and Sam Newfield were back together again in Miraculous Journey. Moving across studios and genres, Rory worked on a wide range of pictures, including westerns and adventure flicks. A number of Selznick's top contract players, including Rory, were loaned out to Warner Brothers in a deal he made in February 1949. She landed a nasty role in Return of the Frontiersman and the lead role in County Fair, among others, thanks to this new arrangement, which led to other roles. Rory Calhoun's career was starting to take shape as Hollywood warmed up to the rugged charm that had captivated Alan Ladd on that ill-fated trip through the Hollywood Hills. Hollywood finally seemed to be beginning to grasp Rory Calhoun's potential in the early 1950s. The actor, who had a long and winding road to stardom, eventually got the parts that would cement his position in the industry after signing a 7-year deal with 20th Century Fox. Not everything went according to plan at first, but progress was being made. Calhoun's early years at Fox were filled with a wide range of parts that did not set him up for the stardom that would come to characterize him. He appeared in A Ticket to Tomahawk as a supporting character, and he co-starred with Betty Grable and Susan Hayward as the male lead in I'd Climb the Highest Mountain and Meet Me After the Show. It wasn't the kind of thing that would propel Calhoun to stardom, but that was okay with him. Everything happened as we traveled. Shortly after, the studio began to see his potential in more major parts. Fox promoted Calhoun to leading man status, and he found himself stepping into bigger shoes. With A Song in My Heart, in which he co-starred with Susan Hayward, demonstrated his versatility. And Gene Tierney's Way of a Gaucho, a Western adventure, demonstrated his talent for the genre that would lead to his stardom. His charisma, good looks, and innate self-assurance made him an ideal choice for each of these parts. Calhoun had established himself as a top man by the year 1953. He co-starred with Robert Wagner and Dale Robertson in the blockbuster films Powder River and The Silver Whip. It was obvious that Fox's investment in Calhoun was paying off because of his indisputable presence in these flicks. As Betty Grable's love interest in How to Marry a Millionaire, he also got a chance to showcase his humorous side. His breakout performance, however, came in River of No Return, in which he co-starred with Robert Mitchum and Marilyn Monroe. He wasn't the main attraction, but his turn as Marilyn Monroe's romantic interest got him cast in a smash hit. Calhoun had already solidified his position as one of Hollywood's brightest prospects when he was prepared to depart from Fox. After an initial period of uncertainty and experimentation, his profession had blossomed into something far larger. Rory Calhoun's charisma and understated confidence had finally caught the attention of Hollywood. Rory Calhoun became famous as Hollywood's rugged bad boy leading actor by the mid-1950s. He was well-versed in westerns, performing the lead role in 1954's The Yellow Tomahawk, a picture that aptly complemented his image as a rugged individual. In the same year, he worked on multiple projects simultaneously, landing roles in Columbia's A Bullet Is Waiting and Universal's A Turn, the latter of which was a grim western starring him in Four Guns to the Border. Shootouts and cowboy hats weren't the only parts, though. In 1955, Calhoun put his acting chops to the test in the musical Ain't Misbehavin', revealing a more amiable aspect of his often rough exterior. However, the media couldn't get enough of Calhoun's reputation, whether he was on or off TV. In 1955, he had a flashback while he and Jeff Chandler were working on The Spoilers. When his mugshot showed up on the cover of Confidential magazine, his long-hidden criminal past was abruptly revealed. Many players might have been in for trouble with the revelation, but Calhoun made the most of it. The public's fascination with the rugged person with a problematic history, as shown by his bad boy image, propelled his career to new heights. He didn't go quietly into retirement. On the contrary, he was cast in many roles, including guest spots on hit TV shows like Zane Grey Theater and westerns like Red Sundown and Voyage. Even dabbling in writing, he conceived up Shotgun's plot around this period. Unfortunately, his contract with Universal prevented him from starring in it. In the latter days of 1956, Calhoun took a risk. He made up his mind that he needed to get out from under Universal. By successfully negotiating his way out of his contract and increasing his asking price to $75,000 each picture, he demonstrated his newfound independence as a star. Calhoun had become more than just a Hollywood actor by this time. Fully realized, he was an alias. Famous for his rough performances and complicated history, he became a mainstay in both Hollywood and tabloid publications. When 1957 rolled around, Rory Calhoun was prepared to go out on his own professionally. He founded Rorvik Productions with Victor Orsatti as his business partner. It was a huge step for Calhoun since it gave him the opportunity to feature in and create his own movies. Flight to Hong Kong, Domino Kid, The Hired Gun, and Apache Territory were just a few of the projects he worked on, demonstrating his flexibility in the field. Simultaneously, he persisted in completing film projects such as Utah Blaine and The Big Caper, in which he consistently showcased his versatility. The movies weren't Calhoun's only focus, either. The Texan, a Western series he created in 1958 and continued until 1960, was his breakthrough on television. When Desi Arnaz suggested the show to Calhoun, he jumped at the chance to take his career in a different direction. While Calhoun was harshly critical of his earlier films, describing them as terrible, he did look back on his parts in With a Song in My Heart and How to Marry a Millionaire with fondness and consider them his career peaks. Several television and film roles kept Calhoun occupied after The Texan. He was a guest star on Gunsmoke, Death Valley Days, Bonanza, and Thunder in Carolina, among others. He also tried his hand at international filming, including the ill-fated Spanish production of The Colossus of Rhodes. He continued filming despite being robbed. He proved he was flexible by going on to star in Marco Polo in Italy and The Treasure of Monte Cristo in the UK. During the 1960s, Calhoun had a string of successful film performances, including Apache Uprising, Young Fury, and The Young and the Brave. But he was unsuccessful in some of his endeavors. Actually, the Wild West TV series considered casting him as James West. However, Robert Conrad was cast for the part following an unimpressive screen test. Calhoun, unfazed, kept producing films in Europe, including Our Men in Baghdad and The Emerald of Artatama, in which he starred. Despite everything, Calhoun's career demonstrated his ability to persevere. He never stopped moving forward, whether it was creating his own films, appearing in westerns, or tackling parts on a global scale. Adjusting to the difficulties that the business world presented him with. Rory Calhoun maintained a hectic schedule in the 1970s and 1980s by starring in a number of films and television shows. Among his many television appearances were guest turns on Starsky and Hutch, Hawaii Five-0, Gilligan's Island, and classic westerns like Rawhide and Thunder in Carolina. Because of his versatility, he was able to appear in many other types of media. And he remained a familiar sight for both his old and new fans. Fans got a taste of his other creative endeavors when he published the novels Serato and The Man from Padera, dipping his toes into writing. In 1982, Calhoun was persuaded to accept a regular position on the soap opera Capital by his family, who reminded him that he had previously declined a job on Dallas, a decision that he would come to regret. Up until 1987, he remained at Capital, establishing a strong following and achieving yet another triumph in his professional journey. Calhoun also became a fan favorite at this period for his roles in cult films, including Night of the Lepus, Giant Mutant Rabbits, Anyone, Motel Hell, Angel, Avenging Angel, and Hell Comes to Frogtown. Although these films failed to become Hollywood hits, they garnered a dedicated fan base, and Calhoun's appearance only served to heighten their allure. Big Jim, which he co-starred in with James Brolin and Richard Roundtree in the 1990s, marked Calhoun's return to his Western roots. In his last feature, Pure Country, Calhoun was reintroduced to the public eye through George Strait's songs. Nevertheless, Calhoun faced the same challenges associated with fame and personal issues as other actors who achieved stardom during that time. And in his struggle for survival, he succumbed to an addiction that would ultimately lead to his demise. Tobacco use was that demon. The emphysema that ultimately took Calhoun's life was a result of his addiction to cigarettes, which he smoked heavily for the majority of his life. Smoking took a toll on his body over time, notwithstanding his gruff on-screen persona and busy Hollywood career. His deteriorating health in his twilight years was accelerated by emphysema, a lung disease commonly brought on by smoking, which caused persistent respiratory issues. On April 28, 1999, Calhoun passed away at the age of 76 at Providence St. Joseph Medical Center in Burbank, California. Both Calhoun's emphysema and diabetes were exacerbated by his smoking and other unhealthy lifestyle choices. Despite the tragic results of his addiction, his work as an actor and his impact on cinema and television will go on.